Kamla, Bissessar and the UNC government have won the 2025 general elections. We asked for change. Let's hope that's what we're getting. Congratulations to all the UNC supporters. UNC swept the PNM during the general elections yesterday. UNC won 26 seats while the PNM won 13, and in Tobago, TPP won 2 seats. Stuart Young's stint as Prime Minister has now become the shortest in the country's history, only lasting a month. Kamla Bissessar, who became the first female Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in 2010, has returned for a second term, as the UNC's promises and plans have seemed to resonate with the people of Trinidad and Tobago. What did you all think about the general elections results for 2025? Did you all think that the UNC would sweep the PNM like this? You all go let me know. The PNM will choose a new opposition leader today. Unlike the process when Stuart Young was picked as the next Prime Minister, the PNM General Council, made up of over 100 members, will choose the next opposition leader. Stuart Young's chances are said to be low after the PNM won 13 seats in this year's general election. Who will be your choice as the opposition leader for the PNM? You go let me know. Prime Minister-elect Kamla Bissessar and members of a cabinet will be sworn in tomorrow at 4 p.m. Also, Dr. Rowley has officially announced his resignation as the political leader of the PNM. His resignation will take effect on Thursday, the same day Kamla Bissessar will be sworn in as Prime Minister. The question now is, who will Kamla Bissessar's cabinet comprise of? All you go let me know. Stuart Young has officially resigned as the chairman of the PNM. Stuart Young has served as the party's chairman since December 2022 to present. His resignation comes 2 days after the PNM lost the 2025 general elections, and as the PNM's General Council plans to select a new opposition leader to lead the PNM in the future. Penelope Beckles is officially the country's new opposition leader. This is really a historic moment for women in this country, as 3 women now hold the top leadership roles in Trinidad and Tobago. Penelope Beckles is the first female PNM opposition leader. Kamla Bissessar is the Prime Minister-elect, and Christine Kangaloo is currently serving as president of this country. What do you all think about this moment in history for women in Trinidad and Tobago? All you go let me know. PEP political leader Philip Alexander says the Progressive Empowerment Party will soon be disbanded as he formally plans to join the UNC. He says he anticipates roles for members of the PEP within the UNC. He claims no promises have been made to him, but he would like to be put in a position to help address the country's water issues. Philip, take my dumb advice. Do not disband your party, because one day you will say something very stupid and you will be cast aside. And the chances of that is highly likely. Today is the 3rd of May 2025 and we start on our clocks. All you go let me know what you all think. A new cabinet has officially been sworn in, and some of the notable names are: Roger Alexander is our new Minister of Homeland Security. Rudal Munilal is our new Minister of Energy. Dr. Michael Dowlat is our new Minister of Education. David Lee is our new Minister of Housing. Philip Watts is our new Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs. Gillian John is our new Minister of Works and Infrastructure, and Wayne Sturge is our new Minister of Defence. Former Prime Minister Stuart Young is questioning the public over Kamla Bissessar's plan to seek a new gas supply source. Kamla has proposed that Grenada, Guyana and Suriname are alternatives to the Dragon gas field. Young warns that any pipeline through Guyana and Suriname will have to pass through Venezuela to reach Trinidad. He also hinted that the Dragon gas deal with Venezuela is still viable. What are your thoughts about Stuart Young still pushing this Dragon gas deal after years and years of disappointment and nothing coming to fruition? You go let me know. Are you anticipating firearm ownership for law-abiding citizens and the implementation of the Stand Your Ground law in Trinidad and Tobago, as promised by the Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar? I've attached a poll above, or you go let me know what you all think. Opposition leader Penelope Beckles wants the government to show proof that Whitehall is unfit for use and that is preventing Kamla Bissessar from working there. Penelope Beckles says the PNM had a cabinet meeting there 2 weeks ago and it was comfortable. Penelope, with all due respect, you were also comfortable with the state of the country when it was in shambles as well. Some of the issues that were reported was ceilings missing and ceilings falling, sewer issues, and there was a bedroom full of alcohol. Why would they have a bedroom or a storage room full of alcohol? What were they really doing in those cabinet meetings? Or you go let me know. Dr. Rowley has shared a video of the interior of the Prime Minister's residence via Facebook, amid reports by Kamla Bissessar and her administration that Whitehall was unfit for work. In the video, Dr. Rowley gave a walkthrough of the building's conditions, including its offices, its bedrooms, and its gym. The video was captioned by Rowley as the Prime Minister's office as I left it. I guess this is where we have reached in our nation's politics. You have to show receipts. because you just don't know what someone else will say about the condition and the maintenance of the building that you left them with. So y'all go let me know, did y'all see any flaws or discrepancies in the Prime Minister's residence? Or you go let me know what y'all think. The Prime Minister's residence in St. Anne's is livable. However, the head of household says it requires a $5 million investment to upgrade and modernize the space. The household needs essential repairs, as well as replacing furniture and fittings to modernize the space. The facility is 19 years old and has been maintained but not upgraded. And a $5 million investment will bring the residence up to a standard that is required. The race just starts and all it done start bad. You all are asking for a $5 million investment to live and reside in a livable mansion, to upgrade furniture and fittings that will cost $5 million. Not from your money, but from the taxpayers' money. Unless I read it wrong. No, I read it correct. $5 million, that's what y'all are asking for. 99% of the people in Trinidad and Tobago are living in homes that are not upgraded. And y'all want to spend $5 million to upgrade the Prime Minister's residence. Let me get that right again. A lot of the people in Trinidad and Tobago are living below the poverty line, and y'all want to spend $5 million to upgrade a livable space. When we say we want to change from the foolishness and the bureaucracy. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has announced that she will put an end to state-funded housing for state officials. She has requested a list of state officials supplied with state-funded housing, and her message to them is, you want a house? Pay for your house. She has also directed her own ministers not to ask for state-funded housing. She said we have to cut costs. She also stated that why should taxpayers pay for your rent when they cannot pay for their own rent? Now this is the Prime Minister that this country needs. Tough on her cabinet and fair to the people. And I hope to God that she keeps the same energy throughout her tenure as Prime Minister. What she also needs to do now is cut some of these ministers' stipends and allowances, and also cut the tax breaks that they get for bringing in vehicles in this country. But guys, do you all like this version of Kamla Bissessar? Tough and fair to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Y'all go let me know. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has instructed that advertising on mainstream and social media for government ministries and state agencies has been put on a hold. She confirmed that her government will be working on cost-saving measures and will plug unnecessary spending. How will this affect the mainstream media, who has been operating on a loss for some time? Guardian Media has reported $6.16 million in losses for the Q1 of 2025 and a total of $11.6 million in losses for 2024. The Trinidad Express has made a significant loss in 2024 as well as the Q1 of 2025 as well. Kamla Bissessar said on the campaign trail that she intends to resume hanging. As of today's date, there are 38 inmates on death row. Of these 38, only 18 are eligible to be hanged. However, the 18 inmates on death row who are on the 5-year timeline cannot be hanged since they have appeals ongoing. Therefore, until their appeals are heard, the death penalty cannot be lawful at this time. However, Kamla Bissessar said she will consult with her Attorney General to address whether or not action can be taken to expedite the appeals. I truly believe that bringing back the death penalty, especially hanging, will reduce crime, and I think that we should do everything in our power to bring back this process. Or you go let me know what you all think. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says the government is spending around $500 million a year on private security. This figure excludes the payment to police, the defense force, and other protective services. This payment is contracted security services. The Ministry of Education is the largest user of these services, accounting to $200 million a year. The Tobago House of Assembly spends $80 million a year. The Judiciary spends $70 million a year. And the Ministry of National Security spends $30 million a year on private security. The Prime Minister didn't call names of these security services, but I'm glad she actually looking to clean up the unnecessary spending in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is the way how corruption takes place in this country. How friends and family get certain contracts. And do not be surprised if you hear certain members of the community starting to hate on the Prime Minister because she's stopping their bread and butter. Or you go let me know what y'all think. Minister of Defense Sturge said he never wanted a ministerial portfolio. However, Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar said it was too late. He admitted he told her he wished to be left alone, as the country had reached a point where it was heading down the wrong road. He also revealed that his family was about to migrate to the US. However, he stayed to fight, and the Ministry of Defense would make hard decisions. I think we just found the weak link in the chain. And it's very sad because the last person who held a ministry like this Fitzgerald Hines, was also the weak link in that chain. And we all saw what happened to the country under that weak link. Murders. Every day was a murder. Honestly, if your heart not in it, leave. Because the people of this country deserve better. The people of this country deserve someone who wants to fight for them every single day. So y'all go let me know what y'all think about Wayne Sturge admitting that he never wanted a ministerial portfolio and that Kamla Bissessar had to encourage him to take the portfolio. He rather just stay home and play in his Superman jockey shorts. This man, I always believed that this man was the weak link in the chain, and he just admitted it to the whole country. Y'all go let me know what y'all think. Police say, although they are committed to transparency, during police-involved shootings, they cannot release the body camera footage of the incident. And this is why citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have lost faith in the TTPS. Police are public servants, and their use of force, especially lethal use of force, should be subjected to public scrutiny. Releasing the footage to the public ensures that the investigation is fair and unbiased. And of course, it's a no-brainer that if body camera footage is accessible through a public access policy, it must have a reduction in lethal force used by the police. And all you get vexed when people say that police only good for running down women and drinking rum. Right? Make it make sense. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says law-abiding citizens must show no mercy for criminals who invade their home. She ensures that stand-your-ground legislation will be intact and that citizens will have access to legal firearms to protect themselves. Her government are currently looking at stand-your-ground models worldwide, including Florida. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has made claims that an armed group of men attempted to enter Venezuela from Trinidad and Tobago. According to Venezuelan reports, a paramilitary group from Colombia infiltrated Venezuelan waters from Trinidad and Tobago. The Colombian group were reported to have weapons of war and were intercepted trying to breach Venezuelan waters. Trinidad and Tobago's Ministry of Defense, however, has no evidence to support Maduro's claims. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has instructed the Coast Guard to use deadly force against any unidentified Venezuelan vessels entering Trinidad and Tobago. She fears Venezuela retaliates for armed Colombian nationals entering Venezuelan waters. Venezuela says they will hunt down anyone trying to destabilize Venezuela. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says Trinidad and Tobago stands with the United States on issues relating to Venezuela. What do you think about the Prime Minister's strong stance against Venezuela? Currently, tensions are building between Trinidad and Venezuela. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this. Former Prime Minister Dr. Rowley has described Kamla Bissessar's call for the Coast Guard to use deadly force against unidentified Venezuelan vessels as madness. He said, to throw down a deadly force gauntlet at Venezuela can also be viewed as powerful stupid. Rowley said, we are burning a bridge with a friendly neighbor in a thinly veiled attempt to curry favor abroad. I don't think that the Prime Minister is a mad woman, that she will make a statement like this without having a discussion with Venezuela. Right? Trinidad and Tobago is a sovereign nation, and it must be defended if it is called into action. This is not a time to be red or yellow. This is a time to be red, white, and black. We're praying for peace, but we have to prepare for the worst. And Venezuela isn't a friendly neighbor as Dr. Rowley is trying to portray them to be. Right? Because look at what they're doing to our brethren in Guyana. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. On the eve of the April 28 general election, the ministry that former Minister Faris Alwari had responsibility for had over 360 CPEP contracts renewed. Minister Barry Padarat said many of these contracts were not close to expiration, but were renewed to protect friends, family, and financiers of the PNM. He claims that some CPEP contractors received an excess of 2 or 3 gangs and saw a return of $40,000 to $50,000 monthly. Also, the rental of a building from a relative of a senior minister in the PNM, costing taxpayers $3.5 million over a 3-year period for a building that was not occupied. Morals and ethics is a hell of a thing. Not everyone that says they want to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago really wants to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Some are in it just for the financial rewards to benefit themselves and their families. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. The Venezuelan government has accused Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar on issuing an angry and unjustified response to terrorism concerns originating from Trinidad and Tobago. The Maduro administration says the Prime Minister's reaction raises suspicion and undermines the good relationship between the two countries. The Venezuelan government says its case is backed by compelling evidence. Venezuela warns Trinidad and Tobago of geopolitical games and urges the country to resolve any legitimate concerns through diplomatic channels. We definitely do not need this type of tension right now. What do you all think about the Prime Minister's remarks? And do you all think that Venezuela has a legitimate concern for terrorism attacks originating from Trinidad and Tobago? You go let me know. Stuart Young is calling for Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar to reconsider that Trinidad and Tobago is off limits to Venezuela for gang hunting. This comes after Venezuela alleged that a Trinidadian was captured traveling from Trinidad and Tobago with a group considered as terrorists trying to destabilize Venezuela. Former National Security Minister Gary Griffith is also calling for diplomacy, warning that Trinidad and Tobago lacks the military might for confrontation. Listen, if you send a warning to someone that if they enter your borders illegally, that you will defend your borders, is that really a threat? Or should we just lay out the welcome mat for them and say, do whatever all you want? It's really funny how one statement to defend Trinidad and Tobago from any type of invasion can divide a country. All you go let me know what you all think. The Venezuelan Minister of Justice is claiming that another batch of weapons have been seized in Venezuela coming from Trinidad and Tobago. He said during an operation yesterday, they seized another batch of weapons in the eastern part of Venezuela. Earlier this week, he described Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar's statement towards Venezuelan vessels entering Trinidad and Tobago waters as crazy, as she responded to claims that a Trinidad and Tobago national named Giz Kendall Giron was arrested alongside Colombian nationals trying to enter Venezuelan waters to destabilize the country. The man being identified by Venezuela as Giz Kendall Giron is confirmed to be a Trini by a small fishing community in South Trinidad. However, they are in disbelief that he would be a part of a plot to destabilize Venezuela. They knew him as Kendall Gibbs and described him to be normal and not a terrorist. He left for Venezuela 2 years ago. Minister of National Security Roger Alexander has responded to the Don's comments and urges youngsters not to give up, especially when they are struggling with something new. He responded to the criticism he received after his first contribution in Parliament. It's very hard to see a grown man in Parliament struggling with reading and articulating himself, especially in the same halls that grace Basdio Pandey and Patrick Manning. What the minister needs to understand is that this is not Crime Watch, and Marlon is not here to help him anymore. And yes, you do not have to be the sharpest tool in the shed to get the job done, but the minister represents a country. And who in their right mind going to send him out to represent or speak for a country and he cannot read or articulate himself properly? So I urge the minister, please seek some kind of help, speech classes or altar classes, because it's looking bad. And show the people of the country that it's never too late to educate yourself. Or I really can't see you being a wrong long. Minister of Homeland Security Roger Alexander has raised an alarm that children are using the illegal drug methamphetamine at school. He says children today have gained information on social media where they put meth into a balloon, fill the balloon with helium and suck it. He says the ministry will address the issue. If we don't get a handle on this now, we will be raising a society of junkies and drug addicts. The question now is, how are they getting helium-filled balloons into the school? This is an issue we have to fix now without delay, or our next generation is gone. WASA CEO Keith Roy Halliday was fired after a management shake-up at WASA. This move comes 2 days after Minister of Public Utilities Barry Padarat called Halliday a failed CEO. Halliday was hired last November by the PNM-led administration to lead WASA's transformation plan, earning him a salary payment of over $100,000 per month. Imagine we living in the 21st century and a lot of people in our population cannot get water every day. Some getting water every week, every other week, every month. Some can't even get a connection. But we hired a CEO and paid him over $100,000 per month. And after 6 months on the job, no transformation has occurred. But the question is this WASA shake-up deserved? You go let me know. Stuart Young's pension as the former Prime Minister will be cut as a result of today's parliamentary debate, proposing that someone has to serve for at least a year as Prime Minister to receive the benefits. Listen, I can give a damn if Stuart Young gets his pension or not. There are a lot more important issues to be debated in Parliament. For example, all the femicides that are currently going on in this country. The murder rate is continuing to go sky high, and we have to have a debate on domestic violence. And this is why the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago is normally say, no matter who wins an election, it's the same foolishness that is going on. Who really cares if Stuart Young gets his pension or not? How is that helping us as the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? You all said if the UNC wins, everybody wins. Well, get all your act together now. Because Stuart Young getting his pension taken away is not a win. Right? There are a lot more important issues to be debated. So get all your act together, please. 10,000 people were left on the breadline after CPEP contracts were terminated. This termination comes days after the government announced plans to conduct an audit of the program. It's never a good situation not knowing when your next paycheck is going to come in. School going on vacation, so that means groceries have to buy. Right? September, school going and start back, so that means books have to buy. So you all go let me know, do you all respect the move of CPEP contracts being terminated? Because yes, you have to restructure to get rid of corruption, but for some reason, it's only the poor people that feel it. You all go let me know what you all think. The PNM has thrown a challenge to the UNC government to show evidence of wrongdoing within the CPEP program. They noted that all contracts were granted with the approval of the CPEP board within the provisions of the public procurement regulations. You know, the funny thing is, since when the PNM gets so concerned about the people of Trinidad and Tobago? For 10 years, you all walked around like kings. Nobody could have tell you all nothing. Now you all want to do the people's work. So all you can let me know, is politics truly a game where the people are used as pawns? You all go let me know. Energy Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal has responded to St. Vincent Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who compared Trinidad and Tobago's currency to monopoly money. Munilal accused him of failing to speak out when Trinidad and Tobago's economy was being mismanaged by the previous government. Now I know some of you are going to get mad at me, but the honeymoon stage is over, and I'm getting quite fed up of this current government only blaming every single thing on the previous government. This is why we put you all in power, for you all to get to work. So, get to work. And Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, I remember that same Trinidad and Tobago currency that you're calling monopoly money was used for relief supplies when you were flattened by the hurricane. So please, show some respect. Because in Trinidad and Tobago, we are very patriotic, and we don't play like that. Because if a hurricane, unfortunately, passes through again this year, are you going to keep the same energy? So you all go let me know, what do you all think about Dr. Ralph Gonsalves' comments about the Trinidad and Tobago currency, calling it monopoly money? You all go let me know what you all think. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be awarded the Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago during his upcoming visit. The government says Modi's leadership has deepened the 63-year-old relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and India. What we really doing? We just giving medals to anybody now. Because what did Modi do? Book an official trip to Trinidad and Tobago. So what we gonna do next as a country? Give travel with Zoe the Hummingbird medal next? Come on, look how much leaders have visited Trinidad and Tobago officially, and they didn't get any medals of honor. So you all go let me know, do you all think that the Indian Prime Minister deserves the Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago award, and he has not yet stepped foot in Trinidad and Tobago as yet? You all go let me know. All schools will be dismissed at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, July 3rd, to facilitate the visit of Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India. This measure will assist in reducing the traffic volume on major highways. Normal school hours will resume on Friday, the 4th of July. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that 6th generation of people in Trinidad and Tobago will be eligible for overseas citizenship of India. This form of permanent residency will be available to people of Indian origin who have acquired citizenship in other countries. It will allow them to live, work, and travel freely in India. To be honest, this is a very nice gesture. I just thought that this visit would have benefited everyone in Trinidad and Tobago, but otherwise, it's still a very nice gesture. So you all go let me know what you all thought about Modi's announcement. Are you all going to seek citizenship in India? Or do you all think that this announcement should have been broader, since Trinidad and Tobago is multicultural? You all go let me know. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has not attended the Heads of Government meeting in Jamaica due to national issues. However, the Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sean Sobers, is representing Trinidad and Tobago. Father Lord, this is one of the problems I had with the appointment of Roger Alexander as the Minister of Homeland Security, and just the fact that we have to send the remedial minister to represent Trinidad and Tobago amongst the region's best and brightest is very scary. The only thing he could do now is just stay quiet, look strong, and hopefully he doesn't make Trinidad and Tobago look foolish. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar will raise the legal drinking age to 21 years and over, while gambling and marijuana use will be set for persons 25 years and over. She cited the harmful effects of marijuana use on the youths and the harms of alcoholism and gambling. I don't see a problem with this because a lot of other countries practice this for practical reasons. A lot of people reach the age of 18 but are not responsible enough to drink. However, having the laws is good, but in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a big problem with imposing our laws. So what do you all think about the legal age of drinking, gambling, and marijuana use being raised? I'll go let me know. Ahead of the UNC's internal elections, Barry Padarat has thrown his support behind Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar, rejecting leadership ambitions. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has declared that she will run for the position again that she has held since 2010. Well, Barry Padarat is not a stupid man. He knows that he cannot say anything differently because Kamla Bissessar has a history of ousting potential threats. But Kamla needs to realize that potentially she may be the glue that is holding the party together. And if she doesn't want the UNC to end up like the PNM party, we all see how dysfunctional they are right now. She needs to introduce a successor soon. Or, just like she did to Basdio Pandey, someone will potentially do it to her. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has announced that police protection will be deployed at high-risk schools during the new school term. The Prime Minister has asked the Education Minister for a list of high-risk schools using data of suspensions and school injuries. Madam Prime Minister, this will only address the symptoms and not the problems. Plus, this is not a new idea. These plans usually start off hot and sweaty, and within a month, no police could be seen in sight of these schools. A lot of these problems start at home. Parents are working during these hard economic times and cannot spend enough time with their children. A lot of children are studying trends and dealing with the changes in their bodies and depression, and treating children like criminals can never solve the problem, Madam Prime Minister. We need to get down to the root of the problem. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Faris Al-Wari claims that government's proposal to set an age limit of 25 years old for marijuana use will end up targeting African youths. He claims 97% of the target audience is going to be young Afro-Trinidadian males. To be honest with you, most youths of all races experiment with smoking marijuana. So I would love to see the research done where Faris arrived at 97%. Because Afro-Trinidadians are not the only race smoking marijuana. And if we're talking data, it is proven that the brain fully matures at 25 years old, and marijuana use can have a significant effect on brain development. And I've never respected the fact that politicians continuously use race to push an agenda, because marijuana is not destroying communities. It's the war against it that is doing the destruction. Legalize the thing already. Minister of Homeland Security Roger Alexander says that the police service must embrace technology as a key tool to tackle crime. He says in order to impact, police officers must be visible, and the Trinidad and Tobago National Operations Center is underutilized and needs to be revitalized. He says a man that does not see technology in policing is not ready to be a police officer. Look at you, proving to Trinidad and Tobago that you're not just big and stupid by telling us the obvious. It's very funny that someone who was a police officer just a few months ago was against technology like body cameras, but now you're singing the praises of it. And this is why Trinidad and Tobago is in the situation we are in. This technology is not new. This technology has been out for years, decades even, but it's been moving on a snail back in Trinidad and Tobago. Why? It's not a new thought that police officers need to be visible and not in the station taking AC. This is not a new thought. Many national security ministers have come out to the public and said this before. Still, nothing has happened. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. To me, it's so funny that people become ministers and become Captain Obvious all of a sudden. Y'all go let me know what y'all think. The PNM is declaring a war against the UNC government for the firing of thousands of workers, which they say has left parents under financial stress. The opposition leader, Penelope Beckles, has accused the government of creating hardship for families as they no longer have the income to provide school supplies. For somebody named Penny, you're not making any sense. Do you know what is a declaration of war? Whoever is advising you, Penelope, I really hope you fire them, because they do have your best interest at heart. Because when the PNM did the same by closing down Petrotrin, you were very quiet. But now you want to declare war for 10,000 workers, and 6,000 of them may be ghosts. The fact that you're willing to fight any fight, no matter how foolish it looks, I really can't see you being opposition leader for too long. I'm being honest. Or you go let me know what you all think. The government is set to make it mandatory for all citizens to walk with a form of ID at all times. This will help police to enforce the proposed changes concerning the new legal age limit to consume alcohol, marijuana, and to gamble. The Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, says the new laws will be enforced by the police. This is totally dumb. There must be an easier way to enforce these new laws than inconveniencing everyone. So you're telling me, if I go into the parlor to buy a snack, why go into the savannah to kick ball? I have to walk with my ID. Why doesn't this just apply to people who want to enter an establishment that sells alcohol or permits gambling? Trinidad and Tobago is not a police state, and this is just another way for police to harass the poor citizens of this country. All you go let me know what you all think. The Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, says in the coming weeks, expect a more visible plan to fight crime. Under the UNC-led government, 80+ murders have been recorded so far. As the minister admits, crime usually increases during the August vacation. He also stated that the campaign promises to tackle crime is still on course. Honestly, we do have weeks. Crime is happening now. When you all sold us these promises, you all sold it as a plan already strategized. And yes, nothing happens overnight, but more needs to be done. Your salary do not have to wait when the month comes. So why us, as the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, have to wait? Especially when the last government promised us the same rhetoric as well. You go let me know what you all think. Olya, I have a question. Which member of the UNC-led government or the opposition best represents nation building or national pride? Olya, go let me know. Olya, I have a question. Which politician, whether it be UNC or PNM, would you least want as a neighbor? And what does that say about their leadership? Olya, go let me know. A state of emergency is set to be in effect as of today due to an emerging threat that targets politicians and key officials. However, no curfew has been recommended to restrict movement. More details of this story is still emerging, and more details will be released soon. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar said she found it necessary to call a state of emergency, as she would not stand idly by as a minority of armed individuals threaten the people of Trinidad and Tobago. She said for years as opposition leader, she asked the government to call a state of emergency, not as a political gimmick, but as a way of fighting back against the crime situation. Sure, Kamla, sure. It didn't seem that way when your Homeland Security Minister, Roger Alexander, basically told the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to hold a strain and decided to arm wrestle on camera instead of facing that citizens of this country are dying. But how dare someone target key government officials? How dare they? We should shut down the country for that, right? Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has become a person of interest to Interpol. Rowley is placing blame on being on an Interpol watch list on Kamla Bissessar and John Jeremy. Rowley is currently wondering what did he do in his public or personal life to be placed in such a situation. Now I am also wondering, what did Rowley really do? Because one just doesn't end up on an Interpol watch list just so. And it's highly unlikely that Kamla Bissessar not being a fan of yours or your previous government could get you on an Interpol watch list. Honestly, it could be your deeds. Maybe your chickens coming home to roost. I'll let me know what y'all think about this story. Rowley on an Interpol watch list. Wow. Never thought I'll see the day. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has condemned Rowley's conspiracy allegations to have his name placed on an Interpol watch list as reckless. Rowley has accused the Prime Minister as well as the Attorney General of the attempt to tarnish his reputation internationally, rather than seeking a direct explanation from the TTPS. Politics in Trinidad and Tobago is like a double-edged sword. Our politicians spend half of their time in power, battling each other instead of focusing on making Trinidad and Tobago a better place. And it's only us, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, end up getting hurt. At this point, I believe Kamla and Rowley missing each other, and they playing a cat and mouse game on we head. He is she medicine, and she does make he wake up in the morning waiting for the next challenge. At this point, I fed up for both of them. Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander is proposing that bail be denied for 180 days for those caught with an illegal gun. He said prisoners are not afraid to go to prison. If caught with an illegal gun, no bail for 180 days, and if convicted, 25 to life. This is a spit in the face of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because in 2020, the UNC opposed a similar proposal for 120 days. So after 5 years, you all decided to add on 60 more days and sell us the same recycled proposal. You see, when you all do things like this, you all show us that it's not about the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It's about who's in power to propose that safety for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. All they don't really care about us. You all go let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has won her 4th consecutive internal elections since 2010. With no challengers willing to step forward, she has officially been re-elected on nomination day. Honestly, she had no opponent because she won the general elections, and removing her as leader now will make no sense politically. However, she is getting older, and I hope that she could choose her own successor herself, getting the party and the membership behind that person before the next general election. No man or woman was meant to rule forever, and the last thing the UNC should want is to be destabilized like the opposition after losing their leader. All you gotta let me know what you all think about this story, and I want to say congratulations to the Prime Minister, Kamla Bissessar. The Minister of Defense, Sturge, has said the Civilian Conservation Corps has not been shut down. He says the government recognizes the value in the program. However, the program has not had an intake since January, and the next intake is set for 2006, while the government spends $2.5 million monthly to keep the program running. He also stated that the program is set to be married with the Ministry of Education for expelled students. As a product of the CCC program myself, I must say that this is a much needed program for the youths of Trinidad and Tobago. It teaches you discipline, a trade, and how to navigate the working world with confidence. You all say the program is not being shut down, but I must say, Sturge, when you speak, you do exude any believability at all. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Minister of Defense Sturge says, with the new Stand Your Ground legislation, you can shoot an intruder in the back, even if they're running away. So as I know, Stand Your Ground is for self-defense. So how can you ever justify shooting an intruder in the back as self-defense? A fleeing suspect does not pose any immediate effect to use deadly force. And Minister, he is a big man and he is a lawyer. So I just let you know, if you start this legislation on cowboy justice, expect things to go downhill very quickly. You all are hyping up people to kill, and that is a very scary thing. You all go let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has warned that her suspension of the CPEP and review of the URP program has led to pushback from the belly of the underworld. Kamla, the only reason you're getting pushback is because you left poor people to suffer by taking away their daily bread. Up to now, you have brought forward no evidence. Instead of dealing with the head go down, you suffered the people at the bottom. And I can tell you this from personal experience. UNC won, but it's not feeling like everybody won. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has revealed that she has a panic button installed in her private home and is encouraging homeowners to do the same. Please tell me that this isn't the crime plan that we have been waiting months for. Madam Prime Minister, you expect the average citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to afford the same type of security system that you have? You have panic button money. I could barely afford an air horn. You are the Prime Minister of this country. When you press your panic button, police come in one time. When I call the police, they take an hour to come. It has no car at the station. It's real out here for citizens of this country, you know. But you don't live the same life as the average citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, so I can't expect you to understand. We're just not the same. Our Independence Day Parade and annual fireworks display will be replaced with a National Day of Prayer and Reflection. This event is to unite citizens of all faiths and backgrounds during a challenging time within the country. Independence Day to me is a source of national pride, and there is no other gathering of unity like gathering with friends, family, and strangers to watch fireworks in the savannah. Isn't there another day that we could dedicate to prayer and reflection for this country? Maybe we need to rethink the split in the Ministry of National Security, because right now we have two wasted time ministers that have done nothing, and I mean nothing, for crime. I could definitely see myself saying a prayer for that. The government is expecting to save $2.6 million after the cancellation of the Independence Day parade and fireworks display. The parade was expected to cost $1.5 million and the fireworks display was expected to cost $1.1 million. Okay, so I have a question. So y'all cancel the fireworks display and the Independence Day parade almost 2 weeks before Independence Day. How much millions did y'all spend so far? Because let's be real, all the planning and preparation and budget for the different services had to cost money months in advance before Independence Day. So I would really love to know how much millions was spent before the cancellation so far. Because let's be real, this is a country you're running. Money isn't saved or budgeted. Money is just redirected to projects you'll think or deem more important than the fireworks display and the Independence Day parade. Let's be real. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has challenged the PNM to stage its own Independence Day parade, stressing that the government has restricted the right for free movement. The opposition leader Penelope Beckles is calling for a scaled-down Independence Day event in the interest of patriotism. She also stated that the Independence Day parade will be a show of force to the criminals. I ain't gonna lie, I like when the Prime Minister beats her chest like this. Basically, she telling the opposition leader, if you feel that you could have your own Independence Day event, do it and see what happens. And honestly, the opposition leader lost me again. Because since when a military parade has ever been a deterrent to criminals? Honestly, I've come to the realization that it's not going to have any parade or it's not going to have any fireworks. I'm looking forward to my day of prayer and reflection, no matter how that looks. The only question I have is, what is that day of prayer and reflection going to look like? Is the Prime Minister and her government officials going to different TV stations or radio stations and, truly uplifting the people, right? Or bars going to be shut down? What is that day of prayer and reflection going to look like? You're going to let me know. The United States Vice President has used Trinidad and Tobago as an example of a high crime rate affecting a country while defending security crackdowns in Washington, saying just a week ago, DC had a higher crime rate than Trinidad and Tobago, which the US State Department has said you should not visit because it's unsafe. The United States urges travelers to reconsider visits to Trinidad and Tobago due to serious risk of crime, terrorism, and kidnapping. It's so funny that the country of school shootings, mass church killings, and a country where someone will shoot at their former president will warn people about visiting Trinidad and Tobago. Trust me, the same way y'all see us is the same way we see y'all. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. The Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro is ready for war and has mobilized 4 million fighters to protect Venezuela from US forces. Venezuela has a population of 30 million and an army of 5 million people. People need to understand how close in proximity Trinidad and Tobago is to Venezuela. And war is never a good thing. The Caribbean has lived in peace with its South American neighbors for years. Now here comes the big bad United States to the rescue because they want to make Venezuela great again. They drive past Haiti, but they're making their way down the Caribbean on their warships, straight to Venezuela. And guys, we're praying for peace because war is never the answer. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has made it clear that her government is in full support of US President Donald Trump deploying 3 warships off the coast of Venezuela. She says Trinidad and Tobago will allow US troops access to Trinidad and Tobago's territory if Venezuela launches any attack on Guyana. Why we Trini so? We always feel we have to open our mouth and be in everything. Sometimes it's more diplomatic to be quiet and mind your business. Tell me, why can't we be neutral and be a pillar of peace and peace talks in the Caribbean? Especially between our 2 neighbors. As usual, y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Do y'all support Kamla's support for Donald Trump deploying 3 warships off the coast of Venezuela? Y'all go let me know what y'all think. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is standing firm in her support for the United States military and warship presence near Venezuela. She says her foreign and domestic policy is unapologetically Trinidad and Tobago first. She also dismissed claims that her stance weakened CARICOM's position, saying that the regional body was already divided. If it was truly Trinidad and Tobago first, I would have loved for the Prime Minister to address the country before making these statements, as well as strengthening her ties with CARICOM, allowing the whole of CARICOM to address the United States as a collective and letting them know that the Caribbean is a peace zone. Because this is not about personal feelings if it's truly Trinidad and Tobago first. Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander has doubled down that his anti-crime strategies will not be made public. He stated that transparency in this regard can advertently give criminals the upper hand. Let's be honest, it feels like the plan is no plan. And how could you release something that you do not have? Just imagine the comedy show that we will be in store for as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to hear Roger Alexander read out a crime plan in Parliament. But at some point I'm convinced that we will get some ChatGPT written crime plan. The only matter is when. Trinidad and Tobago is said to be lending support to an international coalition against drug cartels. This international coalition is said to include the United States, Ecuador, Paraguay, Guyana, Argentina, and Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says she will accept any help to make Trinidad and Tobago safe again. Venezuela's defense minister has accused Trinidad and Tobago's mafia of attempting to destabilize Venezuela through human trafficking and attempting to smuggle products in and out the country. As of last week, 2 Trinidad and Tobago nationals were arrested in Venezuela. Something about this statement not adding up, and I believe Venezuela's defense minister may have it back to front. So you're telling me a country of 1.4 million people could destabilize a country of over 20 million? Last I heard, Donald Trump is coming for your boss for narco-terrorism. But you all are trying to push conflict and confusion at a time where you all should be pushing peace with your neighbors. You're going to let me know what you all think about this story. Venezuela's defense minister is condemning Trinidad and Tobago over Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar's statement to allow U.S. troops to use Trinidad and Tobago if Venezuela attacks Guyana. The defense minister accuses Trinidad and Tobago of aligning itself with Washington against Venezuela. He also accused Trinidad and Tobago of being subservient to the United States, calling Trinidad and Tobago's stance as shameless, saying that history will judge the country harshly. That sounds like a threat to me. Every day, this situation is getting more and more tense, and I am currently waiting patiently to see how all this ends. Dr. Eric Williams' legacy has been criticized for the past few years by a select few. Recently, a UNC public relations officer challenged Dr. Eric Williams' status as the father of the nation and the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, calling this status a PNM myth. When Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar was asked about these statements, she dismissed it as a non-issue. The Bible says a prophet has no honor in his own country. I grew up in the school system where I was taught that Dr. Eric Williams was the father of the nation and the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Recently, there is a narrative on social media saying that he did nothing for Trinidad and Tobago. Now they're saying that he was not the first Prime Minister of this country. But an individual can only be a Prime Minister of an independent nation. And this is why we celebrate Independence Day. We cannot change history. Dr. Eric Williams was the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. If you don't like that, deal with it. Facts is facts at the end of the day. And we have to be very aware that children are watching and learning from us. And I am very disappointed by how grown adults are acting on social media trying to change a narrative of our independent nation. Please get it together. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has expressed her support for the United States strike on a Venezuelan-based drug vessel. She says she has no sympathy for traffickers and the United States military should kill them all violently. The United States President Donald Trump announced the strike on a drug smuggling boat in the Southern Caribbean, while the Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the operation as a lethal strike. Well, the bacchanal start. You're gonna let me know what you all think about the story. Due to the rise in tensions between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, Caribbean Airlines has suspended flights between the two countries for the month of September. All passengers who are impacted by this suspension can rebook or request a refund through Caribbean Airlines. This tension between our two countries has just begun. We pray for peace, but we had to be wise. So this was a great call by Caribbean Airlines. You're gonna let me know what you all think about this story. Minister of Homeland Security Roger Alexander has confirmed that the Port of Spain prison will be decommissioned. The decommissioning of the prison will be done in 4 phases. The removal of prisoners will be done in phase 1, where they will be taken to the maximum security prison. The Venezuelan Minister of Justice says Trinidad and Tobago and other Caribbean fishermen will be condemned to execution at sea as a result of Trinidad and Tobago's alignment to the United States. He referred to Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar as a drunk woman governing Trinidad and Tobago. This follows after a Venezuelan drug vessel was destroyed in the South Caribbean Sea by the United States military. What kind of bacchanal is this? Up to now, I haven't heard any of these Venezuelan ministers mention Donald Trump with their words. But you're attacking our Prime Minister, Kamla Bissessar. What all you really need to be studying is the US military coming for you. Instead, you're all trying to pick a fight with your neighbors. And they say Trinidadians love bacchanal. Well, it seems like Venezuelans love bacchanal even more. A body washed ashore at the Cumana Toco Beach is believed to be one of the persons on board the Venezuelan drug vessel destroyed by the US military. The body is described of that of a Venezuelan national, with his right foot and his right arm missing. His body showed signs of burns. Minister Philip Alexander is rejecting claims circling online, suggesting his involvement in a traffic-related incident involving his son. It is being claimed that his son was pulled over by police on Friday and called his minister father, who asked the police for their name and rank. However, Philip Alexander has stressed that he has never used his political influence for personal gain. Anyway, first day back out to school, guys. Be careful on the nation's roads and look out for traffic signs, because remember, you may not have a minister in your back pocket to call if police pull you over. You're going to let me know what you all think about this story. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has announced that Christmas will be on October 1st in Venezuela. This move is aimed to bring joy to the Venezuelan people, as Maduro plans to send 25,000 troops along the Caribbean coast amid military escalations with the United States. President Nicolas Maduro has denounced the US military presence in the Caribbean Sea, describing this action as a threat against Venezuela. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is set to deport 200 Venezuelans incarcerated in Trinidad and Tobago's prison. She has also rejected a call from Colombia's president asking Trinidad and Tobago to assist in the search for 11 persons blown up by the US military. She says she prefers to see drug and gun traffickers blown up into pieces, instead of seeing hundreds of our citizens murdered due to drug and gun violence. I don't know what kind of action movies Auntie watching in her old age, but she making some harsh statements. She need to put on a rom-com or something, because we need some diplomacy in this country. Kamla Bissessar, let's be real. You could think it, but you don't have to say it. The world is watching. And just like me, they're judging you right now. You're gonna let me know what you all think about this story. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has accused the US of wanting to steal his country's oil, gas, and gold. He says they are looking for many things. They are looking for oil, not drug trafficking. Venezuela has one of the main oil reserves in the world. However, the US government claims the purpose of deploying naval vessels to the Caribbean is an anti-drug operation. Venezuela's vice president is warning Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and the United States, saying, "Do not dare, take it easy, and do not think about it." She referred to Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana as vassal governments to the United States. She also said, "You are lending yourself to destabilize the entire Caribbean and this continent." This situation has continued to go way too far. I am hoping for diplomacy, but I am eagerly awaiting what the Prime Minister, Kamla Bissessar, has to say next. Let's hope it's diplomatic. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says the upcoming national budget will be read in early October. However, the budget is unlikely to be balanced, as the government claims they have inherited bad treasury stock. The Prime Minister says we are expecting a budget where expenditure outpaces revenue. This isn't sounding positive, and only time will tell the overall outcome of the 2025 to 2026 national budget. You will let me know what you all think. Do you all think that this will be a budget for the people, or do you all think that this will be a budget to overall hurt the pockets of the people to build back the treasury? You will let me know. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is warning Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana that if they lend an attack against him, they will receive a response. The bacchanal start earlier, and I have to ask myself, How did we get here? Because these are fighting words. Just imagine a man saying this to your face. And Trinidad and Tobago is a dot on the map, playing with fire. All we could do is look around for our big brother, the United States, to take notice. This has gone way too far, way too quickly. Could you imagine if World War III starts on our doorstep? You all ready for that? Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says that Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar went crazy because she was trying to authorize attacks from Trinidad and Tobago against Venezuela. He said her words were like a declaration of war against Venezuela. He says as neighboring countries, the two were once a single community. He questions who is influencing Kamla Bissessar, citing Marco Rubio as the influence. Right now, Trinidad and Tobago is like the pumpek in between a fight between a Rottweiler and a pit bull. What are we doing there? We are not supposed to be in this. And I really fear what Kamla Bissessar's response to Nicolas Maduro will be. Because we need it to be something diplomatic. But the way how Kamla Bissessar is going, she's going to say something like, well, see it to my face. And that is not what we need in this country. We need diplomacy, especially with a neighboring country. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. President Donald Trump says the US military has targeted another drug vessel coming from Venezuela, killing 3 on board. President Donald Trump stated on Truth Social that these extremely dangerous drug cartels pose a threat to the United States. So far, the Venezuelan government has thrown their attention to Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, when they're supposed to be throwing their attention to Donald Trump and the United States. Because so far, Donald Trump has been talking spicier than Kamla Bissessar. So please, keep your fight with them, Donald Trump and the United States. Don't focus on us here in Trinidad and Tobago. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says she is not concerned by the comments made by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. She says Trinidad and Tobago has always had a great relationship with Venezuela and will continue to do so. However, our relationship will improve if they started accepting the repatriation of their people. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says for over 2 months, Venezuela has been stalling the repatriation of 200 criminal migrants. I 100% agree with this statement by the Prime Minister. This was firm and diplomatic, as this move will lessen the strain on our economy. Whoever makes the coffee for Kamla Bissessar this morning deserves a raise, because this is the sensible leader that Trinidad and Tobago needs. Firm but diplomatic. Not Donald Trump part 2. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. We do not respond to threats well is the defiant message by Foreign Affairs Minister Sean Sobers, as he responds to Venezuela's statements that Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana can face reprisals if our territories are used by the US military to attack Venezuela. What is going on with this government? Because y'all are clearly not on the same page. When Sobers is being diplomatic, Kamla is beating her chest. And when Kamla is being diplomatic, now Sobers is beating his chest. Clearly, you all need to start a WhatsApp group for the government or something. Because you all are not on the same page. You go let me know what you all think about this story. The Venezuelan Justice Minister read a letter expressing that Caracas could recover Trinidad during a live television broadcast. However, he quickly distanced himself from the statement. This comes after the Venezuelan government repeatedly warned Trinidad and Tobago against attacks from its territory by the US military. Spicy talk coming from Venezuela. What exactly are y'all talking about recovering? I would like to know. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander is being accused of meeting incarcerated and alleged gang members shortly before he left the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to pursue a career in politics. These accusations are being made by a prison official currently being held on a detention order issued by Alexander. What an accusation to make. Is it true or is it false? I don't know. If it's true, this is very disturbing. However, if this prison official was not being detained, would he be singing like a bird? Y'all will let me know what y'all think about this story. The Venezuelan Defense Minister has announced that the Venezuelan military will be moving closer to Trinidad and Tobago to combat criminal acts in the waters between the two countries. He also named Trinidad and Tobago as a country where smuggling and human trafficking occurs. The Venezuelan Vice President has responded to Philip Alexander's statement that India will nuke Venezuela in defense of Trinidad and Tobago. She says the only bomb dropped in the Caribbean has to be on the brain of Trinidad and Tobago's new government, and that Trinidad and Tobago should think about its people before they intend to attack Venezuela. When de-escalation is needed most, a minister who should know better opens his mouth and further stirs the pot. Trinidad and Tobago is like a big soap opera at this moment. You're going to let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has reprimanded Philip Alexander over his controversial statement about Venezuela. Alexander stated that India might use a nuclear weapon against Venezuela in defense of Trinidad's Indian population. The Prime Minister made it clear that she does not share the views of Philip Alexander. Madam Prime Minister, hi. You promised the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that this government will not be like the last, and that if any of your ministers step out of line, you're going to bust heads. However, you have a minister in the Ministry of Housing, Philip Alexander, that already has a minister in the Ministry of Housing that will make a controversial statement, such as India might use a nuclear weapon against Venezuela in defense of Trinidad and Tobago's Indian population. That already sounding crazy, Madam Prime Minister. This gentleman has made other horrible statements in the past. Statements against you. And I believe that he is beyond reproach. And I have to ask you, is it worth it to keep one bad egg on your team? Because we all know one bad egg could spoil the bunch. You're going to let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has declared that Trinidad and Tobago and the US will fight fire with fire to push back against drug and gang warfare in the Caribbean. Despite calls from regional leaders for peace in the region, the Prime Minister stated that despite other countries may disagree with her position, other countries do not suffer the same as Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister made some good points in her speech. I'm not disputing that. However, when all is said and done, Venezuela will still be our closest neighbor. And when the dust settles, how will the tension of warfare affect the two countries moving forward towards the future? You're going to let me know what you all think about the story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has been assured by Marco Rubio of the US's continued support for the Dragon Gas project. The US will ensure that the proposal aligns with the OFAC while limiting benefits to Maduro and Venezuela. And here I thought that the Dragon Gas deal is dead. Trinidad and Tobago is really a soap opera, because the same deal that the UNC fought down is the same deal that is being promised now. You can't get better than that. You're going to let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is ready to lead negotiations in Venezuela regarding the Dragon Gas project. She expressed confidence that Venezuela will negotiate with Trinidad and Tobago despite our support for the US. She said, "We have always maintained solidarity with the people of Venezuela." Do you all think that this negotiation with Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago will bear fruit for Trinidad and Tobago? And is this a big win for Kamla Bissessar and her government? You're going to let me know. The Venezuelan Justice Minister made claims believing that the US is sending a strong message to Venezuela not to interfere with Trinidad and Tobago. The minister referred to a comment made by a US Naval intelligence officer suggesting that the US could come to the aid of Trinidad and Tobago in the event of a military conflict between the two nations. This seems like an indirect threat to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and this statement was made in a public forum. And I must ask, what is Venezuela's intention with Trinidad and Tobago moving forward? Are you all friend or foe? And just looking at the face of this justice minister, he looked bad mind with evil intentions. So do you all think that Trinidad and Tobago needs protection from Venezuela? And is Trinidad and Tobago under a potential threat from Venezuela in the foreseeable future? You're going to let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is denying any tension between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, and is now blaming the media for manufacturing this illusion. However, she outwardly refused to answer a question recognizing Nicolas Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela. I don't know if this is some type of dementia or Mandela effect, but I vaguely remember our Prime Minister and members of our government adding to the tension between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. And people, this is why you need to practice diplomacy and sometimes hold your tongue. Because the same people you was bad talking yesterday is the same people you have to strike a deal with today. You're going to let me know what you all think about this story. Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander says it is time for the country to start trying child offenders as adults in court. The minister says he fears that there is not enough consequences to deter young people from committing criminal acts. This comment comes after a 13-year-old was arrested attempting to smuggle contraband into the maximum security prison. I understand that there are a lot of countries that trial underage offenders as adults, but there must be a better way. The undeveloped brain of a child is unlike that of an adult. Some of these children come from broken homes and need professional guidance and professional support to set them back on the right track to change their lives. And we can't just cast these children to the fire without the needed time for development to change their lives around. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Fuel prices have dropped. Effective immediately, super gasoline has been reduced by $1. This is one of the major announcements to be announced in the 2026 annual budget so far. Y'all will let me know what y'all think about this. Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, is playing with the idea to have the Defense Force monitor activities inside and outside of the country's prisons. Alexander says this change is deemed necessary after the prison institution has been under scrutiny. Do you all think that the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force will effect change into the country's prison system? Or let me know. Budget Day has officially been confirmed for Monday, the 13th of October. Last evening, the Budget Day announcement was leaked via social media. It was later dismissed by government officials as fake, only for it to be officially announced today by the Finance Minister. This will be the UNC government's first Budget Day presentation since assuming office this year. Let's hope that the Budget Day presentation goes better than the announcement. Because if you all messed up the Budget Day announcement this bad, I fear what is to come. You're gonna let me know what y'all think about this story. Minister of Housing David Lee has been rearrested today. The arrest comes after a review of a High Court magistrate's decision earlier this year. David Lee was arrested in 2022 with conspiring to deprive the state of tax revenue related to the importation of a Mercedes-Benz. The Mercedes-Benz was valued at $2 million. The CPEP and URP program has come to an end as the government is committed to ending the state funding criminal gangs. The government plans to replace the CPEP and URP program with a full-time and better paying opportunity. This is another key element coming out from the 2026 annual budget. The Finance Minister has announced that a revised 10% salary increase will be made to public servants from the years 2014 to 2016 and 2017 to 2019. This is great news for the public servants. As usual, you will let me know what you all think about this. The government has announced a gradual rise in the NIS retirement age. Starting in 2028, the age to receive a full NIS pension will raise by 1 year every 2 years until 2036. Therefore, at the beginning of 2028 to the end of 2029, the retirement age will be 61 years old. At the beginning of 2030 to the end of 2031, the retirement age will be 62 years old. At the beginning of 2032 to the end of 2033, the retirement age will be 63 years old. At the beginning of 2034 to the end of 2035, the retirement age will be 64 years old. And from 2036 onward, the retirement age will be 65 years old. The Venezuelan Vice President has hit back at Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar as she recalls her previous statement urging the US to kill all drug traffickers violently. This comes after the news broke that 2 Trinidadians were victims of a lethal US strike on a drug vessel. This has been the 5th lethal strike in a matter of weeks off the coast of Venezuela by the US forces. A total of 27 people have been killed by the US forces as of today. The U.S. Embassy of Trinidad and Tobago has alerted its U.S. citizens to avoid visiting U.S. facilities in the country due to a heightened state of emergency. This comes after weeks of tension over military boat strikes in the Caribbean, killing 27 people. I ain't gonna lie, due to the tensions building up for the past few weeks, this is very concerning. And I'm patiently waiting for the Prime Minister to address the citizens of this country over this statement. And I'm pretty sure that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet are very concerned about this statement as well. As I speak, they're probably organizing their safe houses to bunker down for what is yet to come. As usual, y'all let me know, do y'all think that this statement is something to be concerned about? Y'all let me know what y'all think about this story. Is the United States about to attack Venezuela? This week it was reported that Donald Trump had authorized CIA operations in Venezuela. He also confirmed that he is considering striking targets on land in the country. All this has fueled speculation that Donald Trump is planning a ground attack on Venezuela to remove Nicolas Maduro as president. Today, it's being reported that Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar along with key U.S. embassy officials, were moved to a safe house. And my question again is the U.S. about to attack Venezuela? You will let me know. Another boat, believed to be a drug vessel, has been destroyed by the U.S. military in the South Caribbean Sea. This has become the 7th lethal boat strike since September, as 3 people have died on board. 32 people have now been killed by the U.S. military in a matter of weeks. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar acknowledged the growing tension between citizens during her Diwali message after the U.S. Embassy issued a security alert. She said, "I understand that there may be feelings of anxiety at this time, and I wish to assure the nation that my government and I have been working quietly, steadily, and decisively through every available channel to keep you safe." The Prime Minister urges calm and unity, saying that the country should stand firm in Diwali's message, that light will always triumph over darkness. Have a happy Diwali, Trinidad and Tobago. The Venezuelan Vice President and Energy Minister are saying that Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is leading the people of Trinidad and Tobago over a cliff when it comes to the Dragon gas deal. In their statement, they said that Trinidad and Tobago will have to pay for any molecule of natural gas exported from Venezuela, and that Kamla Bissessar was sold a lie by Marco Rubio. They also said that if Venezuela does not export gas to Trinidad and Tobago, the country's economy will crash. The claws are out yet again. You will let me know what you all think about this story. One of the 3 U.S. warships will visit Trinidad and Tobago next week. The 3 U.S. military warships were deployed as part of the U.S.'s mission to fight against narco-terrorism. The vessel will visit from October 26th to October 30th. The Venezuelan Foreign Affairs Minister is urging Trinidad and Tobago not to get dragged into a dirty war. This comes after the U.S. warship docked in Trinidad and Tobago yesterday. He says Venezuela will not be provoked and will defend its sovereignty without hesitation. It seems like this is getting worse every single day. Little Trinidad and Tobago getting dragged in between a fight between a pit bull and a Rottweiler. You will let me know what you all think. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro referred to Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar as a lackey with moral weakness. He also reiterated a statement by his Minister of Defense that Trinidad and Tobago once belonged to Venezuela. Maduro then approved that all gas arrangements with Trinidad and Tobago be immediately suspended. All this comes after the U.S. warship docked in Trinidad and Tobago. As usual, you will let me know what you all think about the story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has been declared a persona non grata by Venezuela. In Latin, that means a person not welcomed. And this comes after President Nicolas Maduro announced that Venezuela will suspend all energy negotiations with Trinidad and Tobago as tensions build between the 2 countries. This is what happens when people who should be in retirement homes have to run a country. Never in my life I thought when Kamla Bissessar won the election that Trinidad and Tobago would be in the middle of a war between Venezuela and the United States. I don't know what to say. And you will let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has announced that her persona non grata is a useless declaration that has no effect on her life. This persona non grata shows the severe breakdown between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. Kamla, you're our head of government. Of course it affects your life. It also affects everyone in Trinidad and Tobago. Just remember, a few weeks ago, you said that you were going to Venezuela yourself to negotiate the Dragon gas project with Venezuela. Even you admitted then that Trinidad and Tobago needed this deal to go through. And Kamla, you need to get this straight ahead. This doesn't only affect you. This affects the whole of Trinidad and Tobago. Get it together. Thousands of Venezuelans gathered today to protest Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar, calling on her not to destroy Latin America and the Caribbean. The Venezuelans gathered holding placards with her face, claiming she was murdering children. This right here is geopolitics at its finest. We as Trinidadians, we are not allowed to protest because of our SOE. However, in Venezuela, they are strongly protesting Kamla Bissessar's decision to align with the United States. You will let me know what you all think about this story. The US is prepared to carry out a strike on military targets inside of Venezuela. This planned attack will seek to destroy military installations used by by drug traffickers. Sources claim that this planned attack seeks to decapitate the cartels inside of Venezuela. If the US really does attack inside of Venezuela, this will really ramp up what is yet to come. And how will this affect Trinidad and Tobago? You will let me know. Venezuela is requesting military aid from Russia as the US is considering strikes on key military facilities in Venezuela. Venezuela is requesting from Putin repair on radars, military aircrafts, and missile supplies. If the US does attack Venezuela later on today, this could be one of the reasons why the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force has been placed on high alert in case of any retaliation. You will let me know what you all think about this story. Be careful and be aware. Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander is telling the public not to get their news from social media. He also says that not every social media report needs to be addressed by the government. Well, maybe if you all as the government actually took the time to address the citizens of this country on the issues that are affecting the citizens of this country, then maybe people wouldn't turn to social media and there wouldn't be fear-mongering. I don't know if you realize this, but we are currently living in the social media era. It's not like long time when people will get their news from the newspapers, the radio or TV. People get their information on social media now. So please, don't use social media as an excuse for your government not informing the citizens of this country properly. So y'all gonna let me know, do y'all get your news on social media? Or do y'all go through the old school traditional route? Y'all gonna let me know. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has labeled Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar a warmonger because of her support for the United States military action in the Caribbean. He says that Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is determined to destroy the brotherhood and peace between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has taken a lot of blame with the tension between Venezuela and the United States. And a lot of the blame is justified, but Nicolas Maduro needs to place the blame with the United States because Donald Trump has been calling him out for years. And with the amount of blame being placed on Kamla Bissessar by Venezuela, it's giving cowardly. I won't lie, it is really giving cowardly. Y'all gonna let me know what y'all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has ordered a complete stop to all fetes at the Brian Lara Stadium due to excessive noise complaints from neighbors. The Prime Minister says her government is committed to tackling noise pollution and its effect on communities, saying that this problem has been ignored too long. Noise pollution has always been a problem in Trinidad and Tobago, whether you live next to a sports complex, a savanna, or an inconsiderate neighbor. Right now we're talking about the Brian Lara Stadium, but we could also talk about the Hasty Crawford Stadium as well, the Avenue. Are fetes going to be banned from around residential communities as well? Are we going to look into silent fireworks instead of the traditional fireworks? And I'm eagerly waiting for the Prime Minister's response on these noise pollution issues as well. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this story. The US military has announced Operation Spear, a military mission to defend the homeland against narco-terrorism. The US will continue to deploy a large number of troops, warships, and aircrafts across the Caribbean and Latin America, despite the regional declaration that the Caribbean is a peace zone. Whenever I think the situation is dying down, the tension just seems to rise again. You will let me know what you all think about this story. The Attorney General, John Jeremy, is saying that the US military is expected to intensify exercises in Trinidad and Tobago. He made this comment in the UK Financial Times, saying that the purpose for the US warship visit on October 26 was for a joint training with the Defense Force. The worst thing about this government is that they cannot face the people of Trinidad and Tobago and talk to us directly. They always talking to foreign publications and explaining our situation to foreign publications. But for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, they're selling us lies and propaganda. What is truly going to happen in the next coming weeks? Is the US going to intensify their operations in Trinidad and Tobago? Will there be a war between the United States and Venezuela? And where does Trinidad and Tobago place in this situation? As usual, you will let me know what you all think about this story. Beginning tomorrow, the US will hold 5 days of military drills in Trinidad and Tobago. The Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, has criticized this as irresponsible, accusing the United States of pursuing a criminal war. He said the people of Trinidad and Tobago will see if they continue to have their waters and land used by the United States to threaten the peace in the Caribbean. Former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is blaming Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar for dragging Trinidad and Tobago in a potential regional conflict. He referred to the Prime Minister as a Bajan who doesn't speak to the media and doesn't go to work. He says if Venezuela interprets a threat or is a victim of a military attack by the United States, the implications for Trinidad and Tobago will be dire. What do you all think about these statements by the former Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley? You all let me know what you all think about the story. The Fete scene is changing as Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has ordered the immediate halt to parties at the Hazley Crawford Stadium and the Gym Player Complex, except during the core carnival period. New rules state no fetes before 12 p.m. and all parties must end at 10 p.m. An acoustic engineer will also be hired to redesign the sound system to minimize noise. The Homeland Security Minister, Roger Alexander, says he has no knowledge of US warships operating in Trinidad and Tobago waters, despite videos circulating on social media and the international media. When confronted about the presence of the US warships, the minister appeared dumbfounded and dismissive. He said, "I know nothing about US warships in Trinidad and Tobago waters." Then he quickly affirmed the value of the US warships in the region, framing it as a benefit to Trinidad and Tobago. This fella they call Roger Alexander is a special case. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. The Venezuelan Justice Minister has again accused Trinidad and Tobago's government of being a puppet to the United States. He recently referred to Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar as the patient, suggesting that she is controlled by the United States. These comments follow a months-long dispute beginning when Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar welcomed US forces into the region. However, the Prime Minister has denied that Trinidad and Tobago will be used to attack Venezuela. As the days go by, this tension between the US and Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela seems to be getting stronger and stronger. And any day now, war may be on our doorsteps. You all will let me know what you all think about this story. You can love the Prime Minister all you want. At the end of the day, she's our Prime Minister. That's the person who has to govern our country. But the Prime Minister is doing a very poor job. And history will remember this. History will remember Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar and her government. A government full of idiots. I ain't gonna lie. The last government was people who just didn't care. The PNM government under Dr. Keith Rowley, they just didn't care about the citizens. But this government, oh my goodness. I don't think they got the same education as some of us, no. I do not think that they got the same education. I want to see some of these people passes. I need to see their resume. I really need to see some of these people's resume. I am ashamed when I hear some of these people talk. I am ashamed. As a citizen of this country, I really need to see half of these ministers' resumes. I need to see their qualifications. Because I am concerned. I am truly concerned. It seems like we will just let anybody run a country at this point. Anybody can run a country. I am really concerned. And the fact that they think the citizens of this country are not educated enough or not informed enough to believe that they can hide information from us in the information age. It's laughable. It's funny. It's really funny. It's really, really funny. I ain't gonna lie. I was really hard on the PNM government. I made some type of videos there. I was hard on Dr. Keith Rowley. They really didn't care about the people of Trinidad. But boy, this one. And we only a few months in, you know. We didn't even reach a year. And I am scared. A woman is behind bars after a controversial social media post targeting the Prime Minister's residence. She was detained under a government order after she posted an image of the Prime Minister's home and asked the Venezuelan government to target it. Authorities state that the post was an imminent threat to public safety and also an attempt to stir up violence. A phone and a social media account is a dangerous weapon that a lot of people do not know how to handle. I see on a daily the type of liable statements that some people make about each other on social media. And I have been a victim of it too, to the point where yesterday I had to make a police report on social media harassment towards myself because people believe that they can create fake accounts and send you messages. They could harass people around you, that they could make videos about you, telling people that you have more woman than Solomon, and saying in the comments that you with an engaged woman, a woman that you don't even speak to or don't even know that well. These are the type of harassments that we make on each other on a daily on social media. And a lot of people think it's kicks and it's for giggles, but it affects people in a very serious way. It affects the people around you. It affects you because you do not know who's watching you, who is willing to target you out here. It is real. Parasocial relationships on social media is very dangerous. Just because you have a social media account doesn't mean you have to post all the intrusive thoughts on your mind. There are some serious consequences to liable statements and social media posts. Y'all will let me know what y'all think about the story. This is a government full of idiots. I'm sorry. This is a circus. I am truly sorry. This is a circus. I want the best. I want the best for Trinidad and Tobago, but at some point we have to admit we were wrong. We have to admit as people we were wrong. They promised change. They promised change. They promised change. And a lot is changing. I ain't gonna lie, we getting change. We getting the change now. It's just we getting the change for the worse. They're changing the Fete culture in Trinidad and Tobago. The Fete culture right now is like a children's party. From 12 p.m. Not 12 a.m. From 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. What good party you know that's finish at 10 p.m.? What good fete you know will finish at 10 p.m.? I know the Prime Minister old, I know the Prime Minister of age. You know, at 10 p.m. she probably in she bed. At 10 p.m. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is probably lying down in she bed. Sleeping. Hopefully hugging up she husband. But what about the younger people? The younger people who want to enjoy their life and, you know, party, you know, experience life, experience the culture. What about the tourists that hearing about Trinidad and Tobago and want to experience our culture, and the party done at 10 p.m. The party done at 10 p.m. That is the saddest thing I ever heard, and I do not know who does be reviewing the Prime Minister's statement. Defense Minister Wayne Sturge has invoked a secrecy clause in Parliament as he refuses to answer if the US military is conducting operations in Trinidad and Tobago. Sturge cited Standing Order 27G. However, his silence comes amid concrete evidence of the US military's presence in Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be warships positioned near Trinidad and Tobago or residents reporting flying aircrafts in the skies. However, the government's official position remains that of silence. UNC councillor Romana Victor and her husband were found dead in their Superior home earlier today. A relative discovered the couple's body unresponsive. However, police report no signs of physical violence. The community of Superior is mourning the loss of Victor, who has been described as dedicated and hardworking. Trinidad and Tobago is set for a high-level security visit tomorrow as America's top military leader, General Dan Kane, arrives for talks with Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar. The visit aims to strengthen the fight against drug trafficking and bolster regional stability. His trip signals a greater push for US and Caribbean cooperation on shared security threats. The Minister of Education, Michael Dowlatt, is investigating a shocking discovery in the school feeding program where lizards were baked inside paratha roti. A source claims that the contaminated roti was intercepted before it could be sent out to schools. Photo evidence support the claim of reptiles being embedded inside the dough. Now this here is just nasty. Lizards being found in the paratha dough. Because roti was always a top hit for box lunch. But does this news change that? You're gonna let me know. In a significant demonstration of bilateral ties, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, Dan Kane, met with Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar today at Diplomatic Center. General Kane's presence was marked with a formidable security presence, with a motorcade flanked by the top units of the TTPS. While the official details of the meeting is scarce, the meeting is set to focus on critical matters such as national security and regional security. The PNM are drawing a line in the sand, accusing the government of cracking down on free speech. This comes after Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander sought US help to crack down on social media commentators critical of the country, potentially revoking their visas. The PNM are declaring that they will not stand by while the government silence and muzzles critics. I must be tripping, but when the PNM was in government, didn't they propose something very similar to this last year? Do not forget, the PNM and the UNC are two sides of the same coin. Do I think that Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is the perfect Prime Minister? No. Do I think that she wakes up every day and tries to do better? No. But the PNM are also no different. I have people walking up to me in the road asking me, Chance, you gonna stop making videos now? I say, keep all your thing. If you all had to propose threats for people to stop talking the facts about some of the things that are going on in this country, keep all your thing. You're gonna let me know what y'all think about the story. The US Embassy has just dropped a bombshell, slamming Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander for attempting to weaponize American visas to silence critics against the government. The US Embassy declared it alone controls who gets a US visa. The US Embassy also stated bluntly that the foreign politician has zero say. Does this humiliating rejection expose a government in chaos? You will let me know. I have to question the Prime Minister as well. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar, what are you doing? You know the man not functional. Why the man there? I don't understand it. Why the man there? The man not functional. The man cannot do the job. He is not capable. Why the man there? I would really love for the Prime Minister to answer this question. The last time he in front of Parliament with her, she has security, but she telling him, Roger, just ask the media to step back. And he going back in police mode. Step back. Brother man, yeah, Minister, relax. Relax yourself. Boy, hey, I really wonder, I really wonder. We in a puppet show. We in a circus right now. This is truly a circus. This is truly a circus. Hey, you can't make this up, You really can't make this up. These people are disappointing. Each and every one of them disappointing. Because none of them, even if it are capable people in the bunch, none of them going and come to the Prime Minister and say, Ma'am, you really need to check your friend, something not right. You do an IQ test on this man or something like that. Something not right. The man a little, lagging now. He like green dot.
You know, you're a little behind. Nobody come and tell the Prime Minister this. Nobody. Such a shame. Such a shame. I say, they promise we change, but we get changed for the worse. We truly get changed for the worse. Right? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do now? I don't know if this portfolio cursed. The last time we had Rastaman, was Rastaman name again? Rastaman. He was so unimportant I forget the man name. Hines. We had Hines in that portfolio. Hines do nothing. Another former police did nothing. Now we split the portfolio. We are Captain Jockey Shorts. Who Captain Jockey Shorts like he just don't wanna be there. You understand? He don't care about the job. And then we have JJ and friends. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a real shame. So the more eyes on our country now, the worse we looking because we have a set of dunce in the parliament. Yeah, especially in the Ministry of National Security, where the world is watching. Because right now, with this tension between America and Venezuela and Trinidad, everybody is watching our national security. And we looking like fools out here. Because we are Captain Jockey Shorts and the West Indian Reader in charge of these ministries. It's a shame. It's such a shame. What we supposed to do? What we supposed to do? Or you gonna let me know what we supposed to do? You know what we really supposed to do? In these hard times. What we really supposed to do in these hard times? Sometimes, hey, we are real patience as a people, you know. We have real patience as a... Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has executed a stunning 24-hour U-turn Wednesday. She said there were no Marines in the country. Thursday, she says, okay, yes, they're in Tobago. The change comes after locals spotted the military troops and online detectives tracked their military planes. So why the secret mission? The Prime Minister says the Marines are installing a fancy new US radar to fight against drug trafficking. However, she did not explain the flip-flop, leaving me to wonder what else is on the radar that we do not know. You will let me know what you all think about this story. President Donald Trump has issued a stark warning to Venezuela. He announced that soon the US will move to stopping drug trafficking by land, escalating a campaign that has so far focused on sinking and bombing boats at sea. Donald Trump said, we warn them, stop sending your poison to our country. This threat signals a major shift just after labeling Venezuela as a terrorist organization. This also comes after US troops were seen setting up in Tobago. My question is the stage being set for a dramatic and controversial escalation? You will let me know. This Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar, boy, hey, if her nose used to grow, if she told a lie, you understand? That would be a very long nose. If Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar nose used to grow every time she told a lie, her nose would be very long. Might have reached from the Red House to Tobago. That woman can lie, boy. Oh gosh. It's sickening. It's real sickening. 24 hours, you know. 24 hours on the Wednesday. No, it have no Marines in the country. On the Thursday, well, you know it have Marines in the country and in Tobago. What going on? What all you know? What all you know in this country? You all running the country or who running the country? Because I'm confused. Is the Prime Minister running this country? Or, you know, she just relaxing, collecting her pay. One day you know nothing. You have a Minister of National Security, Homeland Security, he ain't know nothing. What going on? What really going on in this place? This is what we vote for? This is what we vote for? The red, white, and black, it feeding. It really feeding under this government, you know. The red, white, and black feeding bad. You understand? The colors running. Because this can't be what people voted for. This is a shame. This is a real shame. You understand? It take locals to put up information on social media or the US Marines in the country, and they're setting up radars for them to come out and tell us that they're setting up radars. And you notice she come out and say, well, you know, they're building a road, you know, and they're setting up a radar system to help with the drug trafficking. President Donald Trump confirmed that he secretly spoke with Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro as his administration continues to threaten military action against the country. The outreach stands in stark contrast as Trump recently declared Venezuela's airspace closed. Maduro is now fighting back. In a fiery letter to OPEC, Maduro is now accusing the United States in a plot to steal Venezuelan oil by force. This is a diplomatic soap opera between the United States and Venezuela, featuring secret phone calls and oil grab accusations. And Trinidad and Tobago is in the middle of all this drama. Y'all let me know what y'all think about the story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has told 3 different stories about a secret US military radar in Tobago. First, she said she didn't know. A day later, she said she knew but couldn't say. Now she is saying she asked for it months ago. My question is, why are the US running it if it's just a crime-fighting tool? Why install a high-tech air radar just for catching boats? And who controls the data? Trinidad and Tobago or the United States? Is this about Tobago's safety, or is the island becoming a pawn in a wider conflict? You will let me know. Amid fears of the US military moving into Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago's government says it will support Venezuela in a crisis, but will not open its borders. Barry Padarat says Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has pledged solidarity with the Venezuelan people if a conflict does erupt. However, Padarat stressed this does not mean an open migration policy. Forget the demerit point system. Your wallets are about to feel the sting instead. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar and her government are hitting drivers with new fines to reduce road chaos. Drunk driving, first offense, jumps from $12,000 to $24,000. No license, the fine doubles to $1,500 up to $3,000 if never licensed. Overloading vehicles will have a hefty $12,000 fine. And careless driving increases from $1,000 to $2,000. With no points and just penalties, driving just got a lot more expensive. Venezuela has cut all natural gas deals with Trinidad and Tobago following the seizure of a Venezuelan oil tanker by the United States last week. Venezuela is accusing Trinidad and Tobago of colluding in international piracy with the United States. This move escalates the tension between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, who vows to fight the seizure in international court. President Trump has declared fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction, a move that can place Venezuela in the category of Iraq before the war in 2003. This move opens the door for potential blockades and military action. However, Venezuela is not a primary source of fentanyl entering the United States. A US Air Force cargo plane, call sign Shark 75, has touched down in Tobago today. This powerful cargo aircraft is known to move troops and weapons. While such flights can be routine, the timing is significant. This landing comes as tensions simmer between the United States and Venezuela, leaving Trinidad and Tobago to continue to walk a diplomatic tightrope. President Donald Trump has declared a full naval blockage of Venezuela. Trump is vowing to squeeze the nation's economy until it surrenders oil, land, and assets to the United States. Trump says that Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada assembled in South America. Yesterday I broke the story that Trump declared fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction and what it meant for Venezuela, as it placed Venezuela in the same category as Iraq in 2003. I said in that story that it will open the door for blockades and military action against Venezuela. You will let me know what you all think about this story. Venezuela's military has warned the United States that any naval blockage to seize the nation's oil will be treated as an act of piracy. Venezuela stated that the nation's oil is sovereign property. Venezuela is vowing to resist any move against its natural resources, against air, land, or sea. You will notice that the tension is building yet again. Small moves by big players. Earlier today, Putin's allies, Belarus, warned the United States against action against Venezuela. You will let me know what you all think about the story. The world is currently on pause as President Donald Trump addresses his nation tonight amid tensions with Venezuela. TV news personality Tucker Carlson claimed that tonight the president may announce a major military escalation. However, the White House has not commented on Tucker Carlson's claim, leaving the address by the president a mystery. This week has the world asking one question: is the United States on the brink of war? In a blunt address, Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar declared the United States Trinidad and Tobago's only ally, ending the nation's neutrality with Venezuela. She warns citizens to behave as she commits Trinidad and Tobago to a foreign security agenda. I've said this from the beginning. Why is little Trinidad and Tobago playing in big people business? Trump said this from his own mouth. This war is not about drugs. This is about oil. So what is our government expected to gain with aligning with the United States like this? Are they selling out our country? These are real questions we need to ask. You all let me know what you all think about this story. A second Venezuelan oil tanker has been seized in the Caribbean by the United States. This seizure coincides with the widespread jamming of GPS across the region, a warfare tactic used to blind ships. Meanwhile, inside Venezuela, Venezuelans brace themselves. Venezuelans flock to the gas stations to brace themselves for more disruptions, as rumors swirl of an impending land invasion. Trinidad and Tobago are on the verge of leaving CARICOM after Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar rejected the bloc's authority, publicly aligning the country with the United States. The government dismissed the regional body's stance on Venezuela, declaring it will no longer follow CARICOM's decisions. Is this a strategic separation away from CARICOM and the beginning of a shady relationship with the United States? You will let me know. Former Prime Minister Dr. Rowley has declared that Trinidad and Tobago's sovereignty has been dealt its most offensive blow in 62 years of independence. He said the government is taking secret instructions from the United States, warning citizens to behave or lose their visa access. Rowley said we are being reduced as a vassal state. He is also condemning the secretive security arrangements and the labeling of concerned citizens as anti-American. He warns the future of this country doesn't look good. I ain't gonna lie, Rowley was an arrogant fella. In the years that he was Prime Minister, he did and said some things that I never agreed with. But Kamla Bissessar, in the 8 months that she has been Prime Minister of this country, she take the cake, she take the ice cream, she take the cookies. You understand? She take the gifts under the Christmas tree. And it seemed like she's setting Trinidadians up for a bleak future. You go let me know what you all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has launched a diplomatic bombshell, accusing CARICOM of providing cover for Venezuela's narco dictatorship. Kamla says CARICOM is being used to shield a regime built on drugs and repression. To her regional critics, Kamla said, "Worry not about my words, but about your citizens' US visas being pulled." With Kamla's words, CARICOM's peace zone proclaim has been turned into a battlefield of words. You will let me know what you all think about this story. In a move sure to calm everyone's nerves, Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has announced that the US military has set up a little support office near a local radar facility. It's purely for technical support, of course, in these totally normal and not so tense times. However, our nation's technical support is another nation's geopolitical move, but let's just call it a partnership. You will let me know what you all think about the story. In a fiery rebuke, Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar declared that there will be no reversal to her government's policies. Vowing to reclaim the nation she now calls a lawless dump. The Prime Minister's pledge is stark. Any citizen is free to drive recklessly, smoke ganja, and drink rum. once they accept the consequences. However, she said she will run the country for the benefit of law-abiding citizens. The Prime Minister's message is clear. The rules have changed. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has a clear message for the world that Trinidad and Tobago is not involved. Her statement comes after President Donald Trump confirmed a military strike on a Venezuelan dock. This is said to be the first attack on Venezuelan soil. However, there is no evidence to show that this attack happened. Satellite imagery shows no damage, as well as Venezuelan authorities have not confirmed any military action. You will let me know what you all think about this story. Is Donald Trump lying? Who knows? The cabinet has approved a plan to hire 800 SRP officers into the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. To fast-track the entry, standard age requirements and academics will be waived. This comes after Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander seeks to create order, also defending the Prime Minister's lawless dump statement. Forgive me, I'm just a guy that makes videos online. But your solution for making Trinidad and Tobago better, and not a lawless dump, is by dropping the education and the academic standard within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Listen, more police on the road could never be a bad thing. But at the end of the day, the academic standard needs to be set. We don't need any more duncy police in the police service. Or the lawless dump statement is factually true. And I thought you were trying to, do better. You will let me know what you all think about the story. As of this morning, securing or renewing a Trinidad and Tobago passport just got more expensive. The standard adult passport has jumped from $250 to $500. A business passport has jumped from $350 to $700. And the cost for expediting the process has jumped from $300 to $600. And the most dramatic increase is for lost or misplaced passports, which now cost $2,000 for both adults and children. The United States has launched a coordinated strike against Venezuela. Shaky cell phone footage flooded the internet today, showing rising smoke coming from Caracas, from the US strike that Trump says captured President Nicolas Maduro. This attack comes after months of escalating US pressure. So far, no casualties have been reported as yet. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says that Trinidad and Tobago is not a participant in any military action against Venezuela. Just hours after the strike on Venezuela, Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says that Trinidad and Tobago continues to have a peaceful relation with the people of Venezuela, as she seeks to distance Trinidad and Tobago from the fall-off of the US strike. Venezuela's defense minister is promising a massive counterattack as he declares, "We will not surrender, we will win. The world will see what Venezuela is made of," as he promises a huge aerial response for the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. President Donald Trump has announced that Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife had been captured and removed safely from Venezuela. Trump posted "Mission complete" on social media and promises further details. This sudden operation has now escalated the long-running confrontation between the United States and Venezuela, as Venezuelan officials are now speaking war words. An unspecified number of Venezuelans are dead and wounded following the US military strikes earlier today. The full death toll remains unknown as Venezuelan authorities struggle to account for all the casualties. Donald Trump warns the new Venezuelan president, Delcy Rodriguez, that her fate will be much worse than Maduro if she resists a US takeover. He stated that she will pay a far greater price. However, Rodriguez shot back that Venezuela will never be a colony. This exchange shows that the geopolitical standoff between Venezuela and the United States is still on. Flying near Trinidad and Tobago just got more dangerous, as the United States FAA just issued a security warning for the country's airspace. They cited military activity as the threat. This is a security warning that remains in effect until February. It means that Trinidad and Tobago's airspace is now part of a military risk zone. Venezuela's deposed president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife are set to appear in the Manhattan federal court today. The couple were captured and taken into custody on Saturday during a mission dubbed as Operation Absolute Resolve. Maduro faces multiple indictments that could result in a life sentence. The United States Justice Department has just dropped the central accusation that Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro led the Cartel de las Soles. This accusation was the legal cornerstone of President Donald Trump's aggressive Venezuelan policy. This accusation was used to justify the sanctions on Venezuela and a regime change. This guts the narrative that President Donald Trump used to frame Nicolas Maduro as a drug kingpin. Doubles and coffee. Well, these politicians are asking, who is this guy talking about Trinidad and Tobago and the Venezuelan issues on international TV? Why him? Why not me? All the eyes popping out from the back of your head. Who is this man? Who is this man? Why not me? What does he know about Venezuela? I've been to Venezuela so many times. Why not me? Well, Booger Sugar, fair is fair. I ask myself the same questions about you all the time. How could a man with accusations on his name such as yours have a government portfolio? But I guess if you didn't know me then, you surely know me now. What's that on them nose? I'm out. The top US intelligence analyst says the rapid capture of Nicolas Maduro points at a nearby launch base in Trinidad and Tobago. Malcolm Nancy, a former Navy intelligence chief, told Frontline Times UK that the mission speed being under 28 minutes was the defining clue. That timeline is impossible from a distant location, says Nancy. His analysis concluded that the mission had to be launched from Trinidad and Tobago, just miles off of Venezuela. If this turns out to be true, how does this affect Trinidad and Tobago and the fate that we as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are supposed to have in our Prime Minister, Kamla Bissessar? You will let me know. Opposition leader Penelope Beckles has launched a sharp attack on Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar, accusing her of being absent and failing to lead after the recent US military attack on Venezuela. How long will the Prime Minister continue to hide? Beckles asked. Beckles is challenging the Prime Minister to come face the music. Is this the change we were promised? A Prime Minister hiding from her responsibilities after she egged on the situation with Venezuela? The Prime Minister and her government, all they have is mouth. But when it comes to action, they limp. They can't stand up. They expect somebody else to take care of the situation for them. But you go let me know, is this the type of leadership that we want in this country? A Prime Minister that will run and hide in a hole like a rat at the first sign of tension? Do you want to know if the US military planes have been flying over Trinidad? Too bad. The government has thrown an official secrecy blanket over everything and possibly lost the paperwork. Also warning that the information could harm international relations. In a plot twist worthy of a spy novel, the Ministry of Defense claims that they have no paperwork on the matter. Either someone is hiding something, or the left hand has no idea what the right hand is doing, leaving the public to read between the lines while wondering what exactly has been flying under the radar. Donald Trump is endorsing installing Marco Rubio as Cuba's new leader. This push comes from Trump cutting all Venezuelan oil from Havana. Trump says no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. With the island's economy under direct assault, the message is clear: negotiate or collapse. Tobago didn't swing. It slammed. The TPP seized all 15 districts in a clean sweep, leaving the PNM with zero. But the real story is, who didn't vote? Only 23% of voters showed up, a collapse from 57% in 2021. Most of the island stayed home, calling the elections a waste of time. The TPP held its ground, while the PNM was seen as outdated and out of touch. Tobago didn't whisper, it shouted. Now, can Tobago be heard? The United States has paused immigrant visas to most Caribbean nations, in a move seen as punishing policy defiance. Jamaica, Barbados, Haiti and Cuba were amongst those affected. Only 4 countries were spared: Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Dominican Republic and Suriname, all key strategic partners of the United States. The White House is calling this a security review. Exclusive flight details shows that a US military plane used Trinidad and Tobago's Piaco airport during the operation that captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The US aircraft departed Piaco during the January 3rd raid, returning 1 hour after Maduro was seized. In a radio exchange, the pilot told controllers, "We are okay landing if the K9 is cornered." The Trinidad and Tobago government denies any role in the US mission, but prior granted permission for US military flights. A move experts warned could make the country look complicit. The US Navy's most advanced airship carrier is battling a persistent enemy in the South Caribbean, its own plumbing. Aboard the $13 billion ship, the 4,600 sailors face daily breakdowns of the ship's toilet system. While the breakdowns have no operational impact, the US sailors are frustrated living on a malfunctioning home in the South Caribbean.
Y'all let me know what y'all think about this story.
Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has refused to speak at the Energy Chamber Conference, accusing it of serving foreign multinationals over Trinidad and Tobago. In a sharp attack, she claims that the chamber sidelines local businesses, weaponizes safety certifications, and expects state funds to pay for luxury events. Her snub comes after several international energy firms reduce operations amid disputes with our government, overall raising the stakes in a sector vital to the national economy.
Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says her government may regulate social media use for children under 12 years old. While supporting safeguarding for kids, she firmly rejected any blanket restrictions for adults. She called this an unacceptable encroachment on freedom of speech. The Prime Minister urges parental vigilance, stating that the strongest regulations begins at home. However, the government is exploring legislative options.
The Ministry of Transport has refused to provide a clear list on which traffic fines have increased, despite public confusion. Recent legal notices only show a dollar amount, not offences, forcing drivers to search through complex documents to understand what exactly they could be charged with. The lack of clarity is fueling speculations that these recent traffic fines can be a cash grab. Trinidad and Tobago is opening its migrant registration to all nationalities, granting 1 year of legal residency for $700. Unregistered migrants face instant deportation, but the $700 fee allows legal work. This move aims to improve security and understand who we as a country are dealing with. The government is expecting a high turnout, but has not decided yet if registrants will pay taxes.
Trinidad and Tobago has borrowed $1 billion to help pay the country's bills. This loan does not pay for new schools, hospitals, or roads. It does not create jobs or income for the country. It's mainly to pay off old debts and government costs. The loan is controlled by American laws and courts, meaning that if there is a problem, the rules will be decided outside of Trinidad and Tobago. This puts Trinidad and Tobago in a tough spot, as every year money will be sent out of the country to pay back this loan. Money that won't be used to help the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
The government zone of Special Operations Bill was rejected by the Senate as it fell short of the required votes. The bill needed 19 votes to pass, but only received 15. The proposed law would have allowed the government to declare high crime areas as special security zones. Inside these zones, authorities can impose curfews and conduct searches without a warrant. The bill will be sent back to Parliament, where it cannot be revived unless it is reintroduced in a new session. What were your thoughts about the zone of special operations? Were you all for it, or were you all against it? You will let me know.
On her social media posts, Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar has linked violent crime to race, claiming gang violence is done by mostly young Afro adults in PNM strongholds. She also accused the PNM, which she called an Afro-dominated party, of blocking police action to protect its drug financiers. This explosive claim comes while the country is still under a state of emergency, deepening the fierce political feud between the PNM and the UNC.
A trip to the UN General Assembly, led by Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar in 2025, cost taxpayers $1.2 million. The largest expense was $914,000, listed as non-accountable allowances for the delegation, $147,000 for airfare, and $60,000 for a New York diaspora event featuring Ricky Jai. This revelation sparks scrutiny as taxpayers demand accountability and transparency for nearly $1 million in allowances with no receipts. Will the giant point-of-care refinery roar back to life? A major step is happening soon. Top technical experts from India are coming to Trinidad and Tobago in March. Their mission to advise on restarting the refinery. With global demand and energy rising, Trinidad and Tobago is pushing hard to reclaim its role as the regional hub for energy. The United States has cleared Shell and BP to resume operations in Venezuela, unlocking cross-border gas projects critical for Trinidad and Tobago. The US license allows firms to negotiate with Venezuela's state-owned oil company under strict conditions. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar welcomes the move, calling it an important opportunity to boost regional energy cooperation. However, Venezuela's taxes must go into a US-controlled fund.
Forget playing mass. Minister Barry Padarat wants the government to play hardball right in his backyard. Padarat is offering his constituency of Couva South as the guinea pig for the Zoso crime bill. However, the legislation needs opposition support for help. Padarat is saying desperate times call for desperate measures, as he is offering his constituency as ground zero.
Joshua Samaru's family are looking over their shoulders. Just weeks after police shot Joshua Samaru dead and left his wife paralyzed, the family are now receiving terrorizing threats. The threats come from a man named Douglas, who claims to be a former soldier attached to the police task force. But here's the twist. Douglas was one of the last people to see Samaru alive. It's being reported that the night before Samaru's death, Douglas called Samaru to a Cura bar and kept trying to get him alone. The next day, Samaru stopped to meet Douglas. Minutes later, police appeared and Samaru is dead. Now, Douglas' messages read like this: "We will kill to live, and we could finish Kaya, and go and ask Kaya how them bullets feel." The IMF has a blunt message for Trinidad and Tobago. Raise interest rates and stop spending, or watch your foreign reserves vanish. Reserves have been dropped by nearly US $2 billion since 2021 and are heading lower. The problem, the government is spending too much money while keeping rates frozen at 3.5%. Even as the US rates climb, our deficit sits at 5.5%. Trinidad and Tobago is being urged to tighten their belt to defend the currency or let it float and face volatility. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Minister Roger Alexander has stopped the call to stop the public from sharing footage of police incidents, confirming that no legislation is coming to restrict videos of police encounters. A few weeks ago, the minister called for laws to regulate the sharing of information after police-involved shootings. This statement follows the fatal police shooting of Joshua Samaru. Minister Roger Alexander, I strongly believe you need to be assessed. Your words are as sturdy as a wet paper bag. It looks solid until you actually need it to hold up. And it's concerning. The sad thing is, you hold a portfolio that will constantly garner media attention. And for some reason, you constantly say foolish things. I'm not saying you're the dumbest person in the world, you know. But you better hope the dumbest person in the world don't die. Politics is already a circus. But you do not have to be the clown. But for some reason, it does look like you're choosing to be the sacrificial clown of Trinidad and Tobago. It looking bad. Do better. Donald Trump has invited Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar to his Florida summit. Trump is gathering leaders on March the 7th to talk about China, but only a few CARICOM heads have made the cut. Kamla Bissessar and Guyana's president both got the nod. Kamla promises that news on the drug and gas field will be answered on March the 7th. She was also praised by Marco Rubio for supporting US troops in Trinidad and Tobago. Marco Rubio has also promised US energy support and to find a buyer for the Petrochin refinery. A quiet street became a bloodbath early this morning as gunmen armed with rifles executed 3 men in a targeted attack. Witnesses say rapid gunfire broke the 1 a.m. silence of the early morning as heavily armed gunmen were reported leaving the scene. My question is, what strategies and resources are the government and the TTPS employing to deal with this rapid surge of violence since the SOE has ended? For almost a year, we've heard about this secret plan for the Minister of Homeland Security. Up to now, it's almost been a year. This secret plan has yet to be unfolded. Was the secret plan the SOE all the time? And now that the SOE has ended, crap will smoke our pipe. You're gonna let me know what y'all think about this story. The United States are spending $3 million daily to run and operate a military radar in Tobago. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar addressed concerns about the US military still operating in Trinidad and Tobago. Although she announced that some troops are expected to leave in March, she praised and credited the United States for a 42% drop in homicides and drug bust. The Prime Minister is saying that with US intelligence, it cuts homicides by 42%, but with a triple homicide just yesterday. Is the radar protecting Trinidadians, or is it just protecting American interests? You'll go let me know. Iran's supreme leader is dead, as he was killed moments ago in a US-Israeli strike. Trump took to social media to announce Khamenei's death
and that the Iranians' people's freedom is at hand. Iran's missiles rained on US allies in the Middle East in retaliation. Currently, the Middle East is on fire. My prayers goes out to all the people who are affected. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about the story. Trinidad and Tobago gestured its support behind the US-Israeli attack on Iran, warning citizens in the region to shelter immediately as missiles rained down. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs declared the action aimed to prevent a foreign regime from acquiring nuclear weapon capabilities. Y'all go let me know, how do y'all feel about Trinidad and Tobago being so strongly aligned with the United States against another country? Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Tobago House of Assembly Chief Secretary Fali Augustine declares that Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar stands alone among CARICOM leaders. He says that Kamla Bissessar has more balls than her male counterparts in the region, citing her handling of Venezuela during the CARICOM summit. He notes that Venezuela's allies went silent after US pressure. Yes, the Prime Minister may have big balls, but half all you do not have common sense. Why are you all still poking a sleeping bear? And a sleeping bear that you all want things from? It don't make sense. But y'all go let me know, when the history books look back at Kamla Bissessar's handling of the Venezuelan crisis and the handling of CARICOM, how do you all think that she will be remembered? Do you all think that she will be remembered as a leader that protected Trinidad and Tobago, or one that picked a dangerous fight at a wrong time? Y'all go let me know. Trinidad and Tobago is the sole CARICOM country supporting US strikes on Iran, as our regional neighbors unite in condemnation. Venezuela blasted both US attacks and Iran's retaliation. Guyana called Iran's Gulf strikes unjustified and a breach against international law. And Barbados, Antigua and Grenada urged for restraint, warning of civilian danger. This regional divide further isolates Trinidad and Tobago as the Middle East tension escalates. Trinidad and Tobago is back under a state of emergency just weeks after the last one ended. More details on emergency regulations are expected soon. How do you all feel about Trinidad and Tobago being under a state of emergency yet again, so soon after the last one ended? Y'all go let me know. Back-to-back SOEs in Trinidad and Tobago. Does this prove that the government has no plan to fight crime? Because if the plan relies on emergency powers every few weeks, then there's no plan at all. It's a recurring crisis response. But y'all go let me know what y'all think. Does this SOE seem like a necessary intervention or a sign of deeper problems in Trinidad and Tobago? Y'all go let me know. No curfew, but everything else is fair game. Trinidad and Tobago's new SOE regulations grant police sweeping powers. Your phone is now searchable. Sharing social media posts deemed harmful to public safety is now an offense. Your device can also be seized. Protests are effectively banned, and police can enter homes and stop vehicles without a warrant. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar sits down with President Donald Trump today. Kamla is seeking US muscle to fight the crime problem in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago will sign a new agreement with the United States called the Doral Charter. It's a US agreement to stop drug gangs, control illegal immigration, and to keep other countries from interfering in the region. There's also a strong possibility that US troops will come to Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is reassuring the Caribbean that her new military alliance with Trump will protect the entire region from criminals. She says the move is necessary as the Caribbean faces evil people who will threaten regional safety. Kamla praises Trump as brave and courageous despite his many controversies. Let's be real. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar is playing a Game of Thrones type of politics. Whether Caribbean leaders like it or not, she is going out there and securing alliances and securing resources for her country, which is her job. However, her praise of Trump is where it is get a little strange. Praising him so personally makes it look less of a practical alliance and more like a personal endorsement. So you go let me know. Are you all proud of the Prime Minister for signing a new alliance with the United States? And what does that mean for Trinidad and Tobago? You're gonna let me know. Trinidad and Tobago laws are finally moving online, and they stand to save taxpayers millions. Right now, official laws must be printed in those big red binders that you might see in a law library. When laws change, workers must physically remove old pages and replace them with new ones by hand. All these prints happen overseas,
and it's very expensive. The cost so far has been over $24 million. A new law passed yesterday changes things. Now the online version is just as official as the printed ones, and citizens can finally access official laws online.
The United States has handed Trinidad and Tobago a list of local persons of interest connected to drugs, guns, and violence. Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, couldn't give details for national security reasons, but says the support is critical. Is this new persons of interest list finally going to help Trinidad and Tobago catch the big fish that we have been searching for decades? Or are we going to catch the same usual wabin that we usually catch? You go let me know.
Faisal Wari is questioning why Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander is relying on a list by the United States to identify persons of interest linked to crime and drugs in Trinidad and Tobago. Reports state that the US shared names of persons suspected of drug trafficking with the Minister of Homeland Security. Al-Wari acknowledges that intelligence sharing with the United States is routine, but questions why the minister would need a foreign source for information local law enforcement should have. Listen, we like to make everything a problem in Trinidad and Tobago, but when it comes to crime, which is a major problem in this country, we shouldn't make that political. And my problem is y'all only speak up when it benefits y'all, and when y'all don't want the other side to get 3 points on the political scope. But it looks bad. It looks like you trying to undermine this move because you don't want a big fish to get caught. Just the small wabins as usual. But y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story.
The controversial U.S. military radar in Tobago is gone. A U.S. military plane is expected soon to hold it away. Since November, U.S. personnel have been operating the radar, costing $3 million to operate daily. However, since Maduro's capture in early January, the U.S. presence and now the military radar has quietly disappeared. A Trinidad minister caught parking in a disabled spot has a novel excuse: a rogue food court and a cropped photo. Housing Minister Philip Alexander fired back on social media, blaming a food court for taking all irregular parking. And the greatest excuse yet: the security guard told me to park there. Philip insisted that the viral photo was cropped to remove the security guard. However, parking in a disabled spot without a permit carries a fine of $2,000. The problem is they make laws for us and not for themselves. That is not leadership. It's entitlement with a government badge. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Rowley has labelled Kamla a jamet for failing to back up claims that the PNM are tied to criminals and pedophiles. Only a jamet will make statements like that and not provide proof, Rowley said, as he responded to claims that Kamla made in Parliament that the PNM headquarters was built with narco cash. However, he fired back with his own dirt that Wayne Sturge's 2020 campaign was funded by Danny Guerra, who was shot dead last week. Rowley goes on to say that you came to Parliament with lies, while your own skeletons are rattling. If all you feel that is only on TikTok that grown adults argue with each other like idiots, where do you think they learn it from? Look at our parliamentarians. Look at our parliament. It's all just a circus. But hey, y'all go let me know what y'all think. The Telecommunication Authority of Trinidad and Tobago has slapped CNC3 with a formal warning after Rowley used the derogatory term jamet to describe Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar. The authority called the remark degrading and pointed to the fact that children were most likely watching. CNC3 and their parent company has been advised to exercise greater oversight. What was meant to be a charitable gesture by Philip Alexander of a $2,000 donation to a disabled group, where the photo op was staged at a disabled parking spot, feels like a tone-deaf political stunt. This is not accountability. This is an insult to the entire country. You park in a place reserved for the disabled. You get called out on it and decide that the proper response is to call a photo op in a disabled parking spot. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar says that Trinidad and Tobago will slash its funding to CARICOM, calling the regional bloc a 52-year failure. Trinidad and Tobago covers 22% of CARICOM's budget, roughly $4 million annually. This move is considered a sharp shift as Trinidad and Tobago expands its ties outside of the region. Anyway, good luck to all the children about to do their SAA exams, and good luck to the parents too. Right now, I finally reached that level and I think I'm more nervous than my son. But hey, good luck to all the kids, and y'all go let me know what y'all think about the story. Dozens of patients laid on gurneys in corridors pleading for help at the Eric Williams Medical Science Complex yesterday. This chaos follows a crackdown on nurses over time, but the Nursing Association is saying that 2,000 vacancies is the real crisis. This is what happens when a health system is chronically understaffed, chronically underfunded, and running on the goodwill of nurses who are overworked. The corridors in the hospital are just where these failures become visible. I feel sorry for the patients, but I also feel sorry for the nurses who would have had to go through such a horrible ordeal. The healthcare system is no joking matter. If anyone is working overtime, you deserve to be paid for your overtime. Goodwill can only go so far, and as usual, it's we, the poor people of this nation, that will have to suffer. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about the story. Public Utilities Minister Barry Padarat has broken weeks of silence over the controversial TSTT executive retreat, as he rejects claims that it cost taxpayers over $400,000. However, Barry Padarat broke his silence to say the retreat cost $165,000. However, the union is alleging that the invoices were revised. Listen, when there are people without jobs and suffering to make ends meet in this country, the government is spending lavishly on executive retreats. And the minister's only response is to argue whether it cost $400,000 or $165,000. The irony is, those that are making the decisions on the top have no idea what it is like for the people on the bottom. Because when you're on top of the mountain, you cannot hear the cries of the people in the valley. So while families in Trinidad and Tobago are struggling to put food on the table, those in power are spending thousands on retreats. And when called out on it, they call it sensationalism. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Every Good Friday, some Trinis take out their frustration on a dummy. It's called a bubbly. Originally, it represented Judas, the man who betrayed Jesus. Over time, the tradition has changed. Today's bubblies often look like politicians. Mainly a politician that people are angry with or people feel betrayed by. Some bubblies even hold signs. It's a way for Trinis to vent their frustration by beating a bubbly. So all you go let me know, who y'all think is the bubbly of the year? The United States has renewed its travel advisory for Trinidad and Tobago, warning Americans not to visit due to crime and a heightened risk of terrorism. U.S. personnel are banned from high-crime areas in Port of Spain, including Laventil and Sealots. The advisory also warns of limited healthcare. Trinidad and Tobago has been at a level 3 warning for U.S. citizens since November 2022. A watchdog has stopped the government from awarding $3.4 billion in housing contracts, hours after a minister said taxpayers weren't paying a cent. The Office of the Procurement Regulator froze the deal to 11 companies pending review. Philip Alexander had earlier dismissed corruption claims as nonsense, insisting that banks and developers were covering the costs. However, former Prime Minister Stuart Young wants a criminal investigation into alleged bid rigging. It's very rare for a regulator to halt $3.4 billion mid-process, and it's very embarrassing for the government, especially after Philip Alexander's confident statements. And as usual, David Lee's silence looks bad and very suspicious, as he would be the one who has to explain how these 11 companies were chosen. But y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story. Great news for retirees. Prime Minister Kamla Bissessar announced that pension payments and approved annuity income will be fully exempt from income tax. She stated that pension should be a reward. The financial bill comes before Parliament soon. The bodies of 50 infants and 6 adults were found in one cemetery. Police have launched an urgent investigation after discovering 56 human remains at the Komuto Cemetery earlier today. 50 infants, 4 adult males, and 2 adult females. Some of the adult bodies had ID tags, suspected to be the unlawful dumping of unclaimed corpses. Some more information about the 56 bodies found at the Komuto Cemetery. A gardener at the Komuto Cemetery saw 2 men digging and walked over to investigate. The 2 men told him that they were there to dispose of some children's bodies. The gardener found it weird when a silver car that was parked along the roadside sped off when he approached the men. The gardener took the 2 men to the police station himself, and what police found at the Komuto Cemetery has shocked a nation. The bodies of 50 infants, 4 adult males and 2 adult females. The 2 suspects, ages 18 and 25, work at a funeral home in Arima. They told police that they were following their boss's orders. Dig a hole 6 feet deep and 3 feet wide and dump the bodies. Police are now investigating how this could happen. Who knew? Who gave the order? And why?